Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for tuning in. Eric Graham here with you. And, we're in a really precarious, dangerous time, you know, and, with the threat of nuclear war, the United States pushing us closer and closer, nudging us, pushing us constantly closer and closer to the brink of nuclear war. I was watching a nature documentary and I wrote some thoughts about this and trying to connect it to what we're seeing going on in the world today. Excuse me. Our species should learn in order to survive. I have a few examples. Dogs. The success of dogs in the evolution from the wolf to all the species of dogs that we have now is related to their friendliness. The dogs that had the friendly nature, disposition, and established relationship with the early humans, kind of a symbiotic relationship. The wolves, they followed the humans around, eating their scraps, and so they develop a relationship, and then they can serve the early humans by providing them with the defense and companionship. Flowers, look at flowers, the way that they, through a form of, friendliness, they offer the insects, the bees, something sweet. And then in exchange for, going in and getting the sweet nectar, the pollen gets stuck on their heads. And so they go to the next flower. And then when they pollinate, they pollinate the plants by doing that, from going from one to another. And finally, penguins. Look at penguins in those harsh, super cold environment that the penguins, thrive in, survive and thrive in. It's because they huddle up together in a big, huge groups, and they protect each other from the cold. They survive that way. Uh, and also, human nature, helping each other, we feel good. And cooperation has helped us to thrive and survive as a species. But now we have all these powerful and destructive weapons. It's more important than ever before that we continue to strive for the things that made us successful to this point as a species. But we are being dragged backwards. The United States has already used a nuclear weapon, unnecessarily dropped a nuclear bomb on Japan, and they got away with it. But they got away with it then. But now is a much different time. And in 2024, you see the U.S. stupidly tempting fate in 2024 with numerous countries having nuclear weapons and a guarantee of a retaliatory strike. We find the United States dragging the world back in time, behaving like Neanderthals. They wear their fancy suits, but they're acting like savages, savages in fancy suits, totally ignoring international law and the Geneva Convention. Now I'm going to give you an example of what I'm talking about here. And this is Colin Powell.
Every statement I make today is backed up by sources, solid sources. These are not assertions. What we're giving you are facts and conclusions based on solid intelligence.
He's starting off, everything he's saying is, everything he's going to say will totally be lies. Everything is the exact opposite of what he just said. And everything will be based totally and completely on false propaganda, Pentagon propaganda, CIA propaganda, in order to continue with military campaign and make profit for the military-industrial complex.
Statement I make today is backed up by sources, solid sources. These are not assertions. What we're giving you are facts and conclusions based on solid intelligence. What you will see is an accumulation of facts and disturbing patterns of behavior. The fact
Disturbing patterns of behavior. I'll just play that
What
again.
you will see is an accumulation of facts and disturbing patterns of behavior.
Okay, I'm going to use his own words against him. So I'm like the prosecutor laying out the case here now. The disturbing pattern of behavior is the United States. The United States' behavior. This is another classic example of projection. In the art of propaganda, projection is a major tool that they constantly rely on. So this is another classic example of projection, claiming that it's your enemy's doing, that your enemy is doing what you are doing. It is the United States' disturbing pattern of behavior, of lying, provoking, warmongering, CIA coups, manipulation and threatening to control the United Nations, assassinations, false flag operations, and invasions based on lies. And you know, this was after 9/11. 9/11 was a controlled demolition. You know, you can watch the Twin Towers in a free fall. That's not that you know, the structural engineers have already have determined, and you could look into that on your own. You know, those Twin Towers, they wouldn't just go into free fall like that. And those Twin Towers, they were designed in order to withstand being crashed into by an airplane. The designers, the builders, they thought of that, planned ahead for that, and the construction was designed to withstand that. And buildings, you know, that were hit by an airplane, the structural engineers found that, you know, the temperatures that the air jet fuel would reach would not be sufficient to melt steel and then make the building fall in a free fall like that. And so it was a controlled demolition. I'm from New York City. I remember witnesses and people on the scene. They heard bangs in the lobby, and so there was a demolition. It was a controlled demolition that was pre-planned. So it was a controlled demolition, and you see Colin Powell here. Another thing is the DEI thing. He's a black man being used in order to be the face of the empire in the United Nations and doing his dirty work. Let's hear a little bit more.
Of facts and disturbing patterns of behavior.
Okay, so I'm the prosecutor here laying out the case, and I'm going to use Colin Powell's own words against him and the United States.
The facts in Iraq's behavior demonstrate that Saddam Hussein and his regime have made no effort to disarm as required by the international community. Indeed, the facts and Iraq's behavior show that Saddam Hussein and his regime are concealing their efforts to produce more weapons of mass destruction. Saddam Hussein has chemical weapons. Saddam Hussein has used such weapons. And Saddam Hussein has no compunction about using them again against his neighbors and against his own people. And we have sources who tell us that he recently has authorized his field commanders to use them. He wouldn't be passing out the orders if he didn't have the weapons or the intent to use them.
So you see, he's holding up this vial here. So this disturbing pattern of behavior that I'm using, his own words against him. So the disturbing pattern of behavior is actually the United States, as I stated, and he's participating in it right now. He's doing it. The disturbing pattern of behavior of constantly using propaganda and lies in order to fool the world, trick the world into believing that the United States is the good guy out in the world, being the world police, going after the bad guys, promoting democracy, when actually, the United States is an empire and it's out to control other countries' resources.
This body places itself in danger of irrelevance if it allows Iraq to continue to defy its will without responding effectively
And you see that this is just so pathetic.
and immediately.
Once again,
The issue before us is not how much time we are willing to give the
Linda Thomas Greenfield, the black woman that does this today in front of the United Nations. And I forget the black guy's name, but it's a black woman and a black man. And just like Colin Powell, they go here in front of the United Nations and tell these lies.
The inspectors to be frustrated by Iraqi obstruction.
Because you're going to be more willing to believe.
But how much longer are we willing?
You're going to be more willing to believe it when it comes from a black man than if it came from a white man. That's the DEI.
Willing to put up with Iraq's noncompliance before we, as a council, we as the United Nations say, enough, enough. We must not shrink from whatever is ahead of us. Frustrated by Iraqi obstruction. But how much longer are we willing to put up with Iraq's noncompliance before we, as a council, we as the United Nations say, enough, enough.
Enough, enough. And what he's saying right there should be applied to Israel for what they're doing right now, but the United States defends Israel, right? How long should we put up with Benjamin Netanyahu violating international law, committing genocide? How long should we put up with rape, torture, abuse by Israel against Palestinians before we act as a body? How long? And that's not the question of how long should we put up with it. The United States is actually participating in it. So this is hypocrisy. This is theater. This is so evil.
We must.
Here we're going to continue along this, using Colin Powell's own words against him. The disturbing pattern of behavior. And as I said, this disturbing pattern of behavior is being committed by these sociopaths who rise to the top, rise to be in power in the United States, because it's an evil empire that's out to dominate and control the world, make money, with the military industrial complex, and control the resources of other countries in order to, benefit the, Wall Street, the big banks, and the wealthy in the United States. And so Colin Powell, he was, promoting, doing warmongering propaganda here in order to promote the military-industrial complex in its illegal invasion of Iraq based on lies. And so here you have the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, Albright, being asked about the Iraqi children that are
We have
that they
heard
killed.
that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And, you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
Let me go back and let's hear that one more time. You see this evil witch lady here. She thinks it's worth it that the United States murdered over 500,000 children in another country, all based on lies. Here, listen.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And, you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
There you go. So the price is worth it. There's the evil witch lady there. That's the Secretary of State for the evil empire. Right? That makes sense. And she thinks it's worth it to murder over 500,000 children based on lies. And this is the disturbing pattern of behavior, right? So I'm just going to keep that in mind, keep reminding you of what I'm doing here. I'm the prosecutor using the own words of the empire against it. Colin Powell, the disturbing pattern of behavior. And after, you know, so could have had, you see here, Saddam could have had WMD. So Saddam Hussein could have had. So after it was verified that the United States illegally invaded Iraq based on lies and had murdered over 500,000 children, as we just saw Madeleine Albright say was worth it, and Saddam Hussein did not have weapons of mass destruction, then they simply moved the goalpost and they say, well, it was worth it for other reasons.
It was worth getting rid of Saddam Hussein. He had used weapons of mass destruction, and it's clear that he was hell-bent on acquiring them.
I supported the president when he led us into this, as did the Democrats. And I think we owe him not a lot of scorn. We owe him our thanks that he had the courage to recognize there was a potential of weapons of mass destruction and rather
potential, but that's not what they were saying. They were saying that he had them, definitely, right? Remember Colin Powell in the United Nations, he said that, you know, everything he was going to say was all based on facts.
rather than wait until we had another attack, he went and made sure that it wasn't going to happen from Saddam Hussein. Now,
So you see what he's doing
recognize
here?
there was a potential.
He's moving the goalpost. Excuse me. So what they were saying before was that, you know, he had to be murdered, Iraq had to be invaded, because he definitely had these weapons of mass destruction. And remember, this is connected to the Pentagon hit list. Watch my previous shows. I also wrote an article called The Pentagon Hit List at progressivenewsmagazine.com when I was writing on when I was posting on progressivenewsmagazine.com. But in my previous shows here on this channel, I did also speak about the Pentagon hit list. So the Pentagon, they had a list of countries seven countries that had planned to invade in 7 years, as revealed by the whistleblower General Wesley Clark. Please watch my previous shows. So they moved the goalposts. So, you know, what they were saying at the time, he definitely had these weapons. When it's found out that he doesn't have these weapons, oh, okay, so now we have to create another, move the goalpost, create more, create other reasons why it was worth it. Because what we were saying before, it was not true. But anyway, it was worth it because some other reasons that we're going to make up now.
of weapons of mass destruction, and rather than wait until we had another attack, he went and made sure that it wasn't going to happen from Saddam Hussein. Now everybody can.
And when he says another attack, he's talking about the 9/11, which was an inside job, a controlled demolition. And, you know, according to the cover story, it was carried out by people from Saudi Arabia. So there was never any justification, never any connection between 9/11 and Iraq.
Look back and say, oh, well, we didn't find the weapons. Doesn't mean they weren't there. Just because you didn't find every Easter egg didn't mean that it wasn't planted. My point is that when the president acted, this country was united in believing it was a necessary thing to do. The president acted, this country was united in believing it was a...
United in believing. United in believing. Let's hear that
The
again.
president acted, this country was united in believing it was a necessary thing to do.
The country was...
Point is that when the president acted, this country was united in believing it was a necessary thing to do.
United in believing. United in believing.
My point is that when the president acted, this country was united in believing it was a necessary.
Okay, so believing is not facts, okay? Believing is like, you know, having faith in something or thinking that something is true, but that's not factually knowing. So united in believing. And so how could people be united in believing something that was not true? Okay, and it's because of propaganda, because Colin Powell went there and told lies at the United Nations. And it was you, Huckabee, right? And corrupt politicians, corrupt military, corrupt corporate news media like CNN, MSNBC, and Fox. That's how the country was united in believing something that was not true.
My point is that when the president acted, this country was united in believing it was a necessary thing to do.
So this is the disturbing pattern of behavior that continues. The lies, the propaganda. And so I'm just going to continue laying out this argument, this obvious hypocrisy. The disturbing pattern of behavior. The United States continuing the same disturbing pattern of behavior, pointing its fingers at other countries, other leaders making false claims, when it's the United States that's the #1 provocateur in the world, creating conflict in an effort to continue to make money with the military-industrial complex, weapon selling, controlling the oil, gas.
And I just want to address this very quickly. How long are we going to be in Iraq?
But it's a long, hard struggle. I've got to tell you that we're going to be in this struggle for the rest of this century.
And I'm sorry
Controlling the oil.
to tell you that we're going to be in further.
Controlling the oil and the gas and the precious minerals of other countries. And here you have this little compilation of John McCain, who's he was in Vietnam and he was a prisoner of war. And then when he came back and he just became a corrupt politician, warmonger, unlike, you know, a hero like Smedley Butler. I did watch my video, my show, where I speak about Smedley Butler, the whistleblower American hero who was the most decorated Marine of all time. And he turned whistleblower and explained that he was just a gangster for capitalism, out committing evil acts on behalf of Wall Street.
And I just want to address this very quickly. How long are we going to be in Iraq?
But it's a long, hard struggle. I've got to tell you that we're going to be in this struggle for the rest of this century. And I'm sorry to tell you that we're going to be in further wars.
And we were in 2 wars today combating it, and there are other places in the world where we may have to.
There you go. He's a pure warmonger. So we just got to keep going. It's just going to be war, war, war. Never any mention about striving for diplomacy. It's just he's normalizing the forever war because it's profitable. So they want to stay at perpetual war, and peace is the enemy.
Friends, I know how to handle the Iranians, and I'll handle them.
These young people that are in this crowd, my friends, I'm going to be asking you to serve. This is a long, hard, tough war.
The consequences of failure in Iraq are catastrophic.
And it's going to be very expensive, and it's going to be long and hard and difficult.
It's going to be very expensive and long and hard. It's going to be very expensive. You taxpayers, yeah, this is it. You're gonna pay for it, but it has to be done just because these guys are so dangerous.
Are catastrophic.
And it's going to be very.
Just like with just like they created Russia as the big bad boogeyman in the world. And during World War II, it was Russia that defeated the Nazis. They were the majority responsible, not the US and not the UK. And they were allies with Russia, and it's just artificially, intentionally created Russia as this big bad guy in order to justify the big military budgets and keep people fearful, so that they're going to be willing to listen to this bullcrap from the corrupt politicians on behalf of the military-industrial complex, and you'll just be continually paying, and you're going to continually suffer and do without in your life, and the quality of your life goes down instead of up because your money is going to this fraud, this money laundering military-industrial complex, political-industrial complex fraud. Your money goes to the military-industrial complex. The military-industrial complex, the companies that manufacture the weapons, they give it back to the corrupt politicians in the form of political donations.
Expensive, and it's going to be long and hard and difficult.
Bush has talked about our staying in Iraq for 50 years.
Maybe 100. It's fine with me. I hope it will be fine with you.
Now, my friends, I've got to.
Oh, he'd be great. He's happy with that. Spend 50 years, the next 100 years in Iraq. Oh, he said he would be happy with that. They spent over 20 years in Afghanistan because, like Julian Assange said, it's not about winning. It's about keeping this the transfer of wealth from the tax base to the 0.01%. That's what it's about. Listen to this.
In Iraq for 50 years.
Maybe 100. It's fine with me. I hope it will be fine with you.
Now, my friends, I've got to give you some straight talk.
Fine with me. I hope will be fine with you. So of course it's fine. He's making money from this, but you're not. They're using your money
Maybe 100.
to make money for the wealthy, and so he's happy about it. And he says he hopes you'll be happy about it. This is the level of respect that they have for the citizens. Like I said before, nothing but disdain and contempt and just utter disrespect for the citizens.
It's fine with me. I hope it will be fine with you.
Now, my friends, I've got to give you some straight talk. There's going to be more wars. There's going to be more wars. We're in a greater struggle that is going to be without.
Now,
my friends, I've got to give you some straight talk.
He's conditioning you. He's socializing you to accept that and understand that. You will just continue to be exploited. Your money will continue to be taken from you and not used to help you. Your money will continue to be taken from you to benefit us, the wealthy, the oligarchy. More.
There's going to be more wars. There's going to be more wars.
We're in a greater struggle that is going to be with us.
There's going to be more wars. There's going to be
more war. There's going to be more war. There's going to be more war. Where's the diplomacy?
Now, my friends, I've got to give you some straight talk. There's going to be more wars. There's going to be more wars.
We're in a great...
Maybe 100. It's fine with me. I hope it will be fine with you.
Now, my friends, I've got to give you some straight talk. There's going to be more wars. There's going to be more wars.
We're in a greater struggle that is going to be with us for the rest of this century.
For the rest of the century, he's just preparing you to just get used to it. It's not going to end. There's going to be no end. There's going to be no diplomacy. You know, they talk out of both sides of their mouth. You know, as I'm going to get to in a moment with but you know, they say that they're out promoting democracy, which is the last thing that they're interested in. It's just more mongering, constant propaganda in promotion of war. There is no diplomacy. There is no democracy. But they claim that they're interested in promoting democracy around the world. When that's they have no interest in democracy. They actually prefer dictatorships like in Ukraine, because it makes it easy to control the situation. A lot easier than if a country actually did have democracy, then it wouldn't be as easy to exploit and steal their resources.
about how long we're in Iraq does not understand.
You just don't understand. You're just ignorant. You're just ignorant. The ignorant, unwashed masses. And I'm more intelligent than you. The politicians. We understand better. You just don't understand. So, if you want diplomacy, if you want war to end,
Anyone who
if you want the United States to stop invading other countries based on lies, if you want to cut the $1 trillion military budget for all these 1,000 bases, U.S. bases all over the world, if you want that, you're just ignorant. You just don't understand anything. You're ignorant.
who worries about how long we're in Iraq does not understand the military and does not understand war. The question is not how long we stay in Iraq. The question is whether we're able to reduce the casualties, eliminate them, have the Iraqi military, as they are today, take over more and more of our responsibilities. We have troops in Kuwait. I don't hear a single American say, get the troops out of Kuwait. Maybe there are, but certainly it hasn't affected American public opinion. We have a base in Turkey. We've had troops for 60 years in Germany and Japan. We've had troops in South Korea since 1950. So, I mean, the argument is really almost insulting to one's intelligence to say how long we're in Iraq. The question is, will we be able to succeed with this strategy, which is succeeding, and withdraw American troops to bases out of harm's way, eliminate the casualties, and have this counterinsurgency succeed, which we are on the path to doing. And compare that with the demands for setting a date for withdrawal, which in my view is how al-Qaeda will trumpet that they've defeated the United States of America.
So, just a bunch of lies, all easily verifiable, proven lies. Yeah, this is what they do. It's the standard operating procedure. So this is the disturbing pattern of behavior. This is the real disturbing pattern of behavior. Is this sociopathic continual push toward World War III and nuclear war?
When I came into this office, I made two commitments that are more important than any commitment I make. Number one, to keep the American people safe, and number two, to uphold the Constitution. And that includes what I consider to be a constitutional right to privacy.
Now, Obama's bullshit here. You either respect people's rights to privacy or you don't. He's saying he's talking about respecting people's rights to privacy. And quite the wordsmith.
Observance of civil liberties. Now, the programs that have been discussed over the last couple.
Quite the wordsmith is Obama. So, you know, privacy, rights to privacy, or you don't. The Democrats are hypocrites. They don't respect the Constitution. They don't respect the Constitution. Just like with the censorship in social media, removing people's YouTube channels, Facebook pages, Twitter accounts.
Two commitments that are more important than any commitment I make. Number one, to keep the American people safe, and number two, to uphold the Constitution. Bullshit. And that includes what I consider to be a constitutional right to privacy and an observance of civil liberties. Now, the programs that have been discussed over the last couple of days in the press are secret in the sense that they're classified, but they're not secret in the sense that when it comes to telephone calls, every member of Congress has been briefed on this program.
Okay, wait a minute. So secret
days in the press.
Secret but not secret? Secret but not secret. Oh, so the NSA, see, after 9/11, you had the Patriot Act and all this, you know, new authoritarian fascism, violations of your rights to privacy. It's all being justified here by the, you know, smooth silver-tongued devil here, Obama.
Are secret in the sense that they're classified, but they're not secret in the sense that when it comes to telephone calls, every member of Congress has been briefed on this program.
Every member of Congress has been briefed on this program. So freaking what? They are all corrupt and bought and paid for by AIPAC and the military-industrial complex. The Congress doesn't serve the citizens. They are subservient to the Pentagon and the military-industrial complex and the CIA. So obviously they are going to go along with whatever evil plan or scheme they are presented with, even if it violates your constitutional rights, puts you in more danger rather than making you more safe. And it's all a money-making fraud that is being committed with your money.
With respect to all these programs, the relevant intelligence committees are fully briefed on these programs. These are programs that have been authorized by broad bipartisan majorities repeatedly since 2006.
So, you know, Obama, he never went against the deep state. Obama, the smooth-talking, evil, corrupt coward, the fraud, he never served black people or any poor or working class people. All he had for you were meaningless platitudes and empty promises served up in his ever so carefully crafted, measured, lawyerly fashion. Obama always went along with the deep state.
And so I think at the outset it's important to understand that your duly elected representatives have been consistently informed on exactly what we're doing. Now, let me take the two issues separately. when it comes to telephone calls, nobody is listening to your telephone calls.
Nobody is listening. Okay, they're just recording, but nobody's gonna listen. Don't worry about it. They're just doing it. They're just stealing your data and tapping into your phone calls. But nah, nobody's listening. They're just, they just want to get a general sense. They're just looking at phone numbers and who's calling who. But don't worry about it. If you're not a terrorist, then nobody's listening to your phone calls. Obama justifying the violation of your constitutional rights. And he was the hope and change guy. Hope and change guy. And so please watch my other shows. I think my last show is a key. I believe I spoke about the book. Some of you may have read the book 1984. It's a brilliant book ahead of its time by George Orwell about a dystopian future that I state in my last show that we're living in it now. And so that stuff that Obama was just doing, that smooth talking propagandist there, Obama serving the empire, serving the oligarchy, not serving you. This is what Obama was doing. He's doing
term in 1984 and fundamental to the way the party retains power. Doublethink is, in essence, the ability to believe two contradictory truths at the same time. So the party
to believe two contradictory things at the same time, like
ability to believe two contradictory truths at the same time.
Like Obama said, secret but not secret. They're tapping into your phone calls, stealing your data, but nobody's listening to your conversation.
So the party's slogans in 1984 are good examples. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. These are quite evidently self-contradictory, but the true party loyalist believes that war is peace, that freedom is slavery, and that ignorance is strength. Doublethink is also the idea behind the names of the four ministries that run Oceania. The Ministry of Truth tells lies. The Ministry of Peace wages war. The Ministry of Plenty oversees rationing and scarcity, whilst the Ministry of Love tortures, re-educates, and eventually kills anybody seen to be a threat.
And just like the Department of Defense, when it's really the Department of War. It actually, I think it used to be called the Department of War, yeah. And then they, that was a PSYOP when they changed the name to the Department of Defense. When they're not defending anything, the Pentagon is constantly provoking, as I stated earlier.
O'Brien, the inner party official who spends 7 years laying a trap for Winston Smith, drawing him in, arresting him and then re-educating him, is the ultimate practitioner of doublethink. He believes in what the government is doing in Oceania, but he could also make Winston...
And Newspeak. Newspeak is from 1984 also, so that's a simplified and restricted form of English designed to limit thought and expression.
Believe that he's a committed revolutionary who dreams of overthrowing the very same government. But note that doublethink is not lying and it's not hypocrisy, it's more profound. It is knowing that something is untruthful, but then forgetting this and believing that it is true, and then also forgetting that you have forgotten. In this labyrinthine world, whatever the party says is true becomes true, and through the use of doublethink, it is possible to reconcile these contradictions. So this is the idea that generates the constant rewriting of history, because As the party slogan goes, who controls the past controls the future, and who controls the present controls the past. And the way of controlling the present is by rewriting history and then exercising doublethink to ensure that you totally believe that lie to be true. This is what O'Brien is using when he burns a photograph that Winston had secretly kept, and he says it doesn't exist.
And you totally believe that the lie is true. So this is the you know, the ultimate objective of propaganda, you know, in these psychological operations they do. And that's why they control CNN, MSNBC, and Fox, these corporations, these few corporations, or just a handful of corporations that own and control all this so-called, you know, news media. And so a lot of times you see they read the same scripts, these different organizations, MSNBC, CNN, Fox, they're even your local CBS stations, they'll all be reading the same script.
But he's taking these shots, this antagonism, this taunting to the intelligence community.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for...
So they're speaking here about, you know, when they were doing the Russiagate propaganda, claiming that Trump is a puppet of Putin. But he says the quiet out part out loud here. He, you know, he's rambling. This is about smearing Trump, but he actually, by saying this, he's admitting that, you know, the United States is not a democracy. And, you know, the people that are controlling things are the people that murdered, assassinated JFK, RFK, MLK, Malcolm X, Fred Hampton. They tried to assassinate Donald Trump. So he's admitting here that the intelligence community, the CIA, these are the people who have the power. And if you cross them, then they will retaliate against you and they will get back at you. And so this guy, Chuck Schumer, he's such a corrupt piece of crap. He's not up in arms about this situation, screaming at the top of his lungs how this needs to end. He's just saying, oh, this is just the way it is. And Trump is crazy. Why is he not complete and total slave and doing and saying whatever the deep state intelligence tells him to say, and don't stand up for yourself, don't resist them in any way. Even if you're the president of the United States, you better just do what they tell you to do, or you're going to face the consequences. That's not democracy.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical... Take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical...
So that means that, you know, the United States is
taunting to the intelligence community.
You take on the intelligence community.
The United States is actually a authoritarian fascist regime. It's not a democracy.
They have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you think the intelligence community would do if they were motivated?
I don't know, but from what I am told, they are very upset with how he has treated them and talked about them. And we...
And all Trump did was, he said that, you know, we need to have better relations with Russia. And he was a little bit critical of NATO and, you know, critical of all these, you know, invasions of other countries that the United States was doing. And, you know, Trump is a businessman, you know, he likes to make deals, you know, so Trump, he had his natural instincts are more about deal making. You know, let's make a deal, let's negotiate, let's make a deal. He's a businessman, he wants to make a deal. And, you know, so his like I said, his natural instincts are clashing a little bit with the warmongering invasions based on lies framework that the deep state does. So they had a little clash there. And then, you know, Hillary Clinton, it was beneficial for her to use Russia as a scapegoat because she lost to Trump. So they made up the Russiagate crap, and it was good for Clinton, and it was good for the deep state also.
General, can Ukraine win?
Yes, yes.
What does that look? What does that look like?
Well, what we've said all along is we want.
And the fact is that Ukraine cannot beat Russia.
Can Ukraine win?
Ukraine never had a chance to beat Russia. Ukraine is a proxy war. The United States is using Ukraine to do a proxy war against Russia, and they have no regard whatsoever for the pain and suffering of the Ukrainian people, who have already lost about 600,000 young men in this special military operation that Russia was forced to do because of the lies of the United States and NATO. They were never supposed to continue advancing towards Russia's border with the threat of NATO countries. And after they made that promise, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, that 0 countries closer to Russia would be added to NATO, they actually added 13 more countries closer and closer to the border of Russia. So yeah.
Yes, yes.
What does that look? What does that look like?
Well, what we've said all along is we want to see Ukraine.
He's right here, lying under oath. Secretary of Defense, former on the board of directors of Raytheon. He's just a corrupt. He's just a corrupt warmonger, servant of the military-industrial complex, and he's making a lot of money. He's got absolutely 0 moral character, moral fiber, bravery, character, or anything. He's just a corrupt liar. He's here under oath, lying. Ukraine never had a chance to beat Russia, and Russia have gotten much stronger. Their economy is. Please watch my other shows, and I speak about this.
General, can Ukraine win?
Yes, yes.
What does that look? What does that look like?
Well, what we've said all along is we want to see Ukraine remain a sovereign, independent, and democratic state.
Sovereign, independent, democratic state. Ukraine is none of those things. Sovereign, independent, democratic. Sovereign, it's not. It's obeying what the United States tells it to do. Sovereign, independent. It's not independent. It's only functioning because of the money it's taking from the United States, which comes from the U.S. citizens, which are being robbed of their money for this fraud. And sovereign, independent. Wait a second.
A sovereign, independent, and democratic state.
Democratic. So Zelensky, his term as president formally ended like a month or 2 ago. So he's now just staying in office just because now he's officially a dictator. He's no longer legally the president, and they canceled the elections, and so he's just a dictator. So that's not democracy. It's so much corruption. They're stealing money. Zelensky and his cronies, they're buying vineyards and wineries and luxury automobiles, and it's just, and they've got lots of cash. It's just a huge fraud. And so they're none of these things. So this guy is just telling these blatant lies, just so obvious.
A sovereign, independent, and democratic state that has the ability to defend its sovereign territory and deter aggression. And that's been our aim from the very beginning, and it remains our aim. But yes, they can be successful.
I heard Secretary Blinken say last week in Brussels that
and he
remains our aim. But yes, they can be, and that's been our aim from the very beginning, and it remains our aim. But yes, they can be successful.
I heard Secretary Blinken.
Sorry, his aim
to defend its sovereign territory and deter aggression.
Defend its sovereign territory and
that
deter
has the
aggression.
ability to defend its sovereign territory and deter aggression. And
because later he did admit that the goal here was doing this to weaken Russia. So that's hypocrisy. It's a lie.
And that's been our aim from the very beginning, and it remains our aim. But yes, they can be successful.
I heard Secretary Blinken say last week in Brussels that Ukraine will soon be in NATO. You agree with that?
That's the goal of the NATO members, is to at some point bring Ukraine into NATO, and that's certainly something that Ukraine wants to see.
If you're Russia, would you want that? I'm just asking. I mean, we're playing games with Russia right now. I just want to understand why we would do that.
Certainly, if I was Russia, I would not want that, Senator. I would also not want Finland and Sweden to be a part of NATO, and they are. And the reason that they are is because Putin invaded his neighbor, and without provocation, without justification, and so that's why that's why we are where we are. Instead of making things better for himself, he had the effect of enlarging NATO, which obviously creates worse conditions for him.
Do we have 12 CIA bases?
So yeah, it's just ridiculous. Like I said, the lies after the fall of the Berlin Wall, Russia was promised by the United States no more further incursions towards the Russian border, with adding more countries into into NATO, and they broke their promise with that and added 13 more countries, violating the borders of Russia, supporting Nazis in Ukraine.
I like the structural path we're on here. As long as we help Ukraine with the weapons they need and the economic support, they will fight to the last person.
They will fight to the last person.
I like the structural path we're on here. As long as we help Ukraine with the weapons they need and the economic support, they will fight to the last person.
You hear how insane that sounds? So the United States, they will literally have
the structural path we're on here. As long as we help Ukraine with the weapons they need and the economic support, I like the structure.
Lindsey Graham, he likes it. Over 600,000 Ukrainians are now dead, and that means it's probably 1 million total dead, wounded, and he likes it. He likes it, and he's willing. He's happy to have Ukrainians fight until the very last person. How insane is that? And all for what? To benefit and make money for the United States and the military-industrial complex. And like I was saying before, and this is a game that they're playing, these sociopaths, in pushing us ever closer and closer to World War III and nuclear war. Lindsey Graham is a sociopath, a warmongering sociopath.
What I think about Kursk, bold, brilliant, beautiful. Keep it
Bold,
up.
brilliant,
Putin
beautiful.
started this. Kick his...
Bold, brilliant, beautiful. What's he talking about? He's talking about recently that the
What I think about Kursk, bold, brilliant, beautiful. Keep it up. Putin started this. Kick his ass.
So this sociopath here, he's being flippant, just casual about nuclear war, destroying the entire Earth. In nuclear war, for what? For just to continue making big profits for the military-industrial complex, the political-industrial complex, these think tanks, all these corrupt politicians, the Rand Corporation, these sociopaths that go to work every day at the Pentagon and the CIA with the intention of promoting war, rumors of war, instigation, intimidation, provocation. This is what we're talking about. And recently, Zelensky and Ukraine, they use United States weapons and equipment to launch an attack on Russian soil. And like I said, they're flirting with the destruction of the entire world, and we keep being pushed closer and closer to World War III. And yeah, and it's interesting because I was watching the other day. I saw the description of the Tom Cruise movie, Mission Impossible, and it said a mission gone wrong forces Ethan Hunt and his team to work with the CIA in a race to save the world from nuclear devastation. That's your Hollywood propaganda. It's the US is the one that's forcing us ever closer to nuclear war. And they project themselves as the world police saving the world from nuclear war. So this is a great example of how the US propaganda machine works. It's Hollywood movies, the corporate news media machine. It's ubiquitous. You're surrounded. You're drowning in propaganda. You're drowning in propaganda, false information, and projection. So the U.S. is leading, forcing the world into World War III and a nuclear war, and it works constantly to convince you that it is the hero trying to save the world from nuclear war. We're saving you from all the bad guys in the world, when actually the crazy evil villain with the plans to control the world is the U.S. And China and Russia are the thoughtful, intelligent people trying to deal with these maniacs in the Pentagon. Excuse me, the CIA, these maniacs in the Pentagon and the CIA that are determined to dominate the world, maintain the glorious U.S. empire, or destroy the world in the process. And as I've stated before, these people are deranged, obsessed lunatics who have no reverse gear. And when people think about war, many people ask the question, why does this continue? And, geopolitics on face value would seem complicated until I give you this secret code, and then it instantly simplifies everything. And that is that for some time now, the antagonism, the provocations, the conflicts, the invasions, the coups, the threat of World War III and nuclear war, and now the genocide of the Palestinians by US and Israel is all because of the US instigation with China and Iran and Russia. And they're like bad schoolboys out playing hooky with, and this is the mentality of these sociopaths of very limited intelligence, such as Lindsey Graham, Anthony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, Lloyd Austin. So why does it continue? Because the employees at the Pentagon, the CIA, the White House, the Congress, the vast majority of Washington, D.C., go to work each day with the intention and goal of maintaining the U.S. empire's dominance and total control of the world.
What I think about Kursk, bold, brilliant, beautiful. Keep it
Bold,
up.
Brilliant, beautiful. And what he's talking about, Kursk, so Kursk, that's the area of Russia that the Ukraine just invaded and went into. And you know what's in Kursk is a nuclear power plant. So what they did was what they could have done was Ukraine could have caused a equivalent of a nuclear bomb. If you're attacking a nuclear power plant and you're going to fire missiles at it, and if you successfully hit it, then you could cause a nuclear meltdown. It could be Kursk could be the next Chernobyl, or it could be equivalent of actually detonating a nuclear bomb. And he's happy about this.
Putin started this, kick his ass. Bottom line is
Putin started this, kick his ass. Putin did not start this. Like I said, Putin was forced to do this special military operation because the United States broke his promises, continue to push NATO countries, closer and closer to its border. The United States is supporting the Nazis in Ukraine. Those Nazis in Ukraine have been murdering Russian-speaking citizens close to the Russian border for a long time. And Russia was finally Russia continued always to implore the United States to stop what it was doing, stop coming closer and closer to its border with, threatening its border with NATO. And the United States always just refused and just continued. So now we have this potential for nuclear war because these people are continuing to provoke. And
is to the administration. I appreciate your support. Let these people fight. Give them weapons they need to win a war they can't afford to lose.
Today is one of hope. More hope than I've seen in any of the trips that I have been here.
that's not hope. This is just a sign of desperation. It's not hope. It's a sign of desperate people doing desperate acts because Ukraine is already lost. This fraud is coming to a conclusion now. Russia's going to conclude the special military operation very soon. So this is not hope, this is desperation.
The breakthrough in Kursk on that front is historic. It is a seismic breakthrough. Good news, big news, promising even more potential breakthroughs. We want to convey to the administration a message that it should provide more flexibility and authority to Ukraine in using
more.
The breakthrough in Kursk on that front is historic. It is a seismic breakthrough. Good news, big news, promising even more potential.
Terrible, awful, and just pushing us closer and closer to World War III and nuclear war. So just everything he says, it's just the total opposite. It's the projection, propaganda, and just bold-faced lies. Everything that they say is actually 180 degrees opposite is the truth. So that's another tip to help you analyze and understand these sociopaths. Everything, just use that as a general rule. A general rule is that, whatever they're saying, it's the total opposite is the truth. And now here you see, the president of Ukraine, who's actually not the president anymore. Like I said, his term is concluded. He's staying in power because he canceled the elections, and he's a dictator. He's a totalitarian, corrupt dictator. He's eliminated the political parties that were, against what he's doing. He even closed the Orthodox churches because the priests were complaining and speaking out against him. And I think he he closed down the churches, and I'm not sure what he did with the priests, but maybe they're in jail. And here he is playing the part of the president.
Good morning, Mr. Koloborochka. Can I connect you with Angela?
On a TV show, on a Ukrainian TV show, because he's an actor. So he was the perfect, he was the perfect candidate, the perfect selection to be the puppet president for the United States in Ukraine. And so that's why he's there, because he's a corrupt actor.
Yes, you can connect.
Hello, my congratulations. We decided to take your country to the European Union.
Oh, fuck! Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, wow! I'm so happy. Yes. Thank you very much, all the Ukrainians and all of our country. We've been waiting for this so much time.
Ukrainian?
Yes, Ukrainian.
So there he is, your little coke-sniffing actor, clown, puppet president of Ukraine, puppet of the United States that's cost his country so much death and destruction. And how did he get there? How did that happen? Who in the world selected? How did Zelensky?
When you're a high-ranking official talking about...
How did Zelensky, an actor, get to be the president of Ukraine? Wow. Well, you know what? Guess what? The world-dominating evil empire selected Zelensky to be the president of Ukraine because they hand-selected him to be their puppet. How do we know this? I believe it was
diplomatic efforts in Ukraine. The last thing you want to do is drop your guard.
So that would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN help glue it. And, you know, the EU.
Fuck the EU. There she is. There's the United States. There she is, Victoria Nuland. Victoria Nuland. She was the second in command of the State Department, and she's busted here on a phone call. I believe it was WikiLeaks that released this phone call, but she's right here, busted on a phone call, saying "fuck the EU." I talked about this in my last video, I think, my last show. But fuck the EU. We don't care what they think. We don't care what anybody thinks. This is what we are going to do. This is what we want. This is what the U.S. empire wants. So we're going to install our puppet. And they selected the, actor who actually played the role of president of Ukraine. They selected him to actually be the puppet president of Ukraine. And so, it was the 2014 coup that was done under Obama and Joe Biden. And yeah, so they began this fraud, this money laundering, military industrial complex, corrupt politician fraud. These people, if the United States, they should be charged with RICO. They should be charged like the mafia with RICO. Conspiracy. Yeah. Conspiracy to commit fraud, RICO charges, yeah.
Would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN help glue it. And, the EU.
But that is exactly what reportedly happened between US Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland and US Ambassador to Ukraine Jeffrey Pyatt. The exchange has since surfaced online, including the crude swipe at the European Union. The audio clip of a woman and man, said to be Nuland and Pyatt, hears them discussing strategies to work with the three main opposition figures.
I don't think Cleach should go into the government. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a good idea.
In terms of him not going into the government, just let him sort of stay out and do his political homework and stuff. I'm just thinking in terms of sort of the process moving ahead, we want to keep the moderate Democrats together. The problem is going to be Tony Book and his guys. And, I'm sure that's part of what Yanukovych is calculating on all of this.
I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, what he needs is Cleach and Tony Book on the outside. He needs to be talking to them 4 times a week. I just think Cleach going in, he's going to be at that level working for Yatsenyuk. It's just not going to work.
There is a suggestion for Nuland.
So there you see, U.S. oligarchs, tools of the empire, out controlling the world, interfering in the governmental processes of other countries, and not allowing other countries of the world to go about their business as sovereign entities as they should. They're being interfered with and controlled by the United States Pentagon.
If you want to visit the Russian town of Sudzha these days, you need to ride with the Ukrainians. A small group of journalists were invited to see Kyiv's prize conquest, to see the chunks blown out of a statue of Lenin in its main square. Peaceful people in the basement, this reads, no soldiers. It's civilians on this side of the border, now cowering underground. If Ukraine's surprise land grab inside Russia's Kursk region was a lightning raid, the information coming out of it has been slow. Until yesterday, the Ukrainian Air Force commander releasing this footage of their strike.
So, total disregard for the danger they are causing as they push us closer and closer to World War III and nuclear war. Because these people live in the fantasy world that exists inside the Beltway bubble, inside the Beltway bubble, the DC area. the Beltway, the highway that runs around the Washington, D.C., Virginia area. So these people live in the fantasy world that exists inside the Beltway bubble. In that world, it's still the 1990s, and the Wolfowitz doctrine and the total spectrum domination is in full effect, and the U.S. has military superiority all over the world, over the third world and puny, miserable shithole countries of the world, and China, the Middle East, India, Russia. But the sane of us know that time is. But the sane of us know that that time is long since gone, and we are now relying on the wisdom, rationality, patience, and intellect of Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, in order to prevent World War III and nuclear war. They know, the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, and the President of China, Xi Jinping, know that they are faced with extremely dangerous and unpredictable sociopaths who have no limits. Look at the Nord Stream pipeline, right? The United States blew up the oil and gas pipeline running from Russia to supply cheap energy to Germany and Europe. And the United States, please watch my other show. I explained it's all the proof that Joe Biden ordered that to be destroyed. He destroyed the property of his ally, Germany, which satisfied the Rand Corporation desires and objectives. Please watch my last show. We're relying on Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping in order to prevent World War III and nuclear war. They know that they are faced with extremely dangerous and unpredictable sociopaths who have no limits. Look at the Nord Stream pipeline. Look at the assassination of Trump. This is why we now live in a world where we have to live in a state of fear and anxiety. What is going to be this one's retaliation for their last attack? Like we wait now for Iran's retaliatory attack for the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. This is because the United States has intentionally, irrationally created it. And so you see here this provoking, threatening provocation here that Lindsey Graham said he was happy about, and this is going to lead to World War III nuclear war.
On a strategically important bridge on Wednesday near the town of Glushkovo, which is still under Russian control.
We can see that the occupier is suffering.
There he is. So you can see he's aged a lot since, from his acting days where he was acting like the president. Now he's actually become the president. You can see he's aged a lot. A lot of stress, a lot of partying, a lot of cocaine, but he's a wealthy man now.
Losses, and this is beneficial, very beneficial, for our defence. This includes the destruction of the Russian army's logistics and the depletion of their reserves. We must inflict maximum damage on all Russian positions, and we are doing so.
Ukraine now claims to control 1,150 square kilometres of Russian territory, including more than 80 settlements. The destruction of the bridge over the River Seium will likely complicate Moscow's counter-offensive, but the Russians remain on the front foot within Ukraine, their troops reportedly closing in on the key town of Pokrovsk. Diverting soldiers, cutting off supply routes, increasing bargaining power. Whatever motivated Ukraine's unexpected cross-border assault caught President Putin off guard. Russia's foreign ministry said Ukrainian forces had used US-made short-range missiles to strike the bridge over the Seium River.
So there you go, US missiles causing this destruction. Instead of diplomacy, it's always just more provocation. As you've heard them say, more is their objective. Parallels between the Germans and the Ukrainians. So first of all, also, Germany is running cover for the U.S. for blowing up. There you see the nuclear power plant on fire. But Germany is running cover for the U.S. blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline. They screwed their own citizens, the future of their country, by participating with the plans and schemes of the United States. The spineless Schultz and Bierbach, the defense minister, she even stated, when German citizens were protesting the support of Ukraine, she came out publicly and said, I don't care. I don't care what the citizens want. I don't care what they say. This is what we're doing. So yeah, that's the parallels between the Nazis of World War II and the Ukraine of today. It's like in World War II, you had the Battle of the Bulge, where desperate Germany took some of its soldiers from the front lines and moved them to attack, to cross into Russia and make an attack. Towards Belgium, in a desperate attack to attempt to take territory and keep the war going. But so the famous Battle of the Bulge ended up, costing them a lot of soldiers. And that's the same thing now that's happening here with this this desperate attack onto Russian soil using U.S. weapons and attacking a nuclear power plant. How insane! What kind of lunacy is that? Another parallel is the way that Ukraine is recruiting young people, old people, handicapped people, because they're desperate. They've had so many soldiers killed. Same with the Nazis. This sociopathic behavior. Hitler, Lindsey Graham is like Hitler. And, previously, before, all the way up until, Russia did this special military operation, and then all of the media all began obeying the wishes of the Pentagon. Before that, previously, all these articles had been written about the Nazi problem in Ukraine. Because Ukraine is full of Nazis, neo-Nazis. The Nazi ideology never left Ukraine. In some ways, the Nazi ideology never left Germany either. There never was what you could call, I guess, a cleansing, an accounting for, because in large part, again, because the United States is to blame. The United States rehabilitated so many Nazis. They, instead of Nazis, being given the death penalty or put in prison, the United States brought them to the United States. They took some of them to Argentina. Some of them they made the officials in the new West German government after the surrender of Germany. But they even used the von Braun and the Nazi engineers to go into NASA and make the U.S. rocket launch, adventures into space possible was because of von Braun and the Nazi engineers. And, you know, let's remember too that the United States has already used a nuclear weapon. You know, they dropped a nuclear bomb on Japan during World War II. That was totally unnecessary because Japan they were already done anyway. The war was coming to a close, and there was no reason to do that. They just did it because they wanted to. They had it, and they wanted to try it and use it. And you know, why did they drop a nuclear bomb on Japan, but they didn't drop a nuclear bomb on Germany? Why is that? So you know, the U.S. is the driving force that is constantly pushing, nudging us closer and closer to nuclear war. For the Pentagon and the military-industrial complex, peace is the enemy. Yeah, and the military, the political industrial complex works for the military industrial complex. So they're all subservient, they're all corrupt, they're all under the influence of the military industrial complex. So Russia, you know, is trying to maintain diplomacy, trying to call upon the international community and the United Nations to put pressure and to try to, you know, do something to rein in these sociopaths in the Pentagon, in the United States that are seem obsessed with perpetual war, forever war, and they don't have the wisdom to understand and put it in the context of the potential destruction of the entire earth. And we need diplomacy.
Deir al-Balah officials are warning of overcrowding in Gaza's so-called safe zone. This is after Israel issued new displacement orders for people in parts of the city, as well as other areas in southern Gaza. The UN says about 2.1 million people live in the Strip at the moment.
And China at the United Nations stated that Israel's heinous acts are totally unacceptable. And even the UK stated that it was appalled by Israel's murder of 100 innocent civilians while at prayer at a school. That was last week. And the US says Israel has a right to attack schools and kill innocent unarmed civilian Palestinians while they are attempting to kill Hamas. So of course, you know, you had Linda Thomas Greenfield. She's like the Aunt Jemima representing the evil sadistic master at the United Nations. Like you saw Colin Powell, and there's another, you know, black guy that they use along with Linda Thomas Greenfield to do the dirty work in the United Nations. Just to clarify, for those who do not understand when I call her Aunt Jemima, what I mean is that she's like a sellout, like Obama. When black people get in power, they don't do the right thing. They don't stand up to the system in any way to represent the people. They don't show any bravery. They are the wolf in sheep's clothing, representing the interests of the wealthy elite. And, you know, Aunt Jemima, you know, the male equivalent of that is Uncle Tom. I forget his name, but Linda Thomas Greenfield, she has the black guy that's her partner that also, you know, is the face of the empire in the United Nations. And so, you know, the Uncle Tom from the famous book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, being willing to go before the UN and justify this. It's ridiculous. Israeli genocide against the Palestinians and defend these heinous acts committed by Israel in order to defend genocide. What year is this? The US, the Pentagon, the CIA, the billionaires like Sheldon Adelson, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, the World Economic Forum, are intent on driving us all off a cliff with them as they instigate World War III and nuclear war with Russia. Using their little cokehead former actor who played the role of president on a TV show before he was made the real president puppet of the United States. Or the World War III nuclear war will begin by the sick, sadistic, evil Netanyahu. Actually, his name is Milkowski, using Israel's Samson doctrine. You know, they have the Hannibal doctrine, which gives the orders for the Israeli military to murder its own citizens before they can be taken hostage. And you have the Samson doctrine, which is the Israelis using their nuclear weapons if they feel desperate enough. And so that's an open secret. The United States doesn't formally acknowledge. I think maybe just the other day, Biden might have slipped and acknowledged that Israel has nuclear weapons, but that's like the secret that they know, but they don't speak about the fact that Israel has nuclear weapons.
Officials are warning of overcrowding in Gaza's so-called safe zone. This is after Israel issued new displacement orders for people in parts of the city, as well as other areas in southern Gaza.
And so besides, actual murder, extermination, killing that they're doing, this is a form of psychological torture that they're doing. They just, they say, oh, this is a safe zone, and then they bomb it. They say, oh, move over there, this is a safe zone, and then they bomb it. So it's just psychological torture, further, disrespect, treating these people like they're animals, as Israel officials have stated, call them human animals. Israel is always, it's a apartheid state. Israel has always been in control of the water, electricity, and the food and other medical supplies. Everything that Palestinians can receive is at the whim of the Israelis.
The UN says about 2.1 million people live in the Strip at the moment. About 90% of Gaza's population has been displaced. That's around 1.9 million people. But the so-called Al-Mawasi safe zone that you see there in red has been attacked repeatedly by Israeli forces, and it has shrunk to just 11% of the Gaza Strip. That means so many Palestinians have been forced into a tiny area, and now around 1 million people are sheltering in Deir al-Balah. Al Jazeera's Hind Khudari is live there. Hind, for Palestinians who are just now arriving in Deir al-Balah, it's so crowded already. Where can they go? And once they found a place to sleep, how do they even find the other basic necessities?
Well, the situation is collapsing and deteriorating every single minute. Now, already before those evacuations in the past couple of days from Al-Maghazi and also from Khan Yunis, the Deir al-Balah has already been packed. We're talking about 1.8 million displaced Palestinians, according to UNRWA, that are squeezed into the middle area, and especially in Deir al-Balah. Now, those who were able to find a space to set up their tents where this is not currently happening, they have zero access to the necessities. Now, as you see, we're in the middle area where those Palestinians are squeezed, and the ambulances did not stop transferring.
This is just ridiculous, this absolute destruction. This has never been about Israel defending itself. This has always been about genocide and extermination. So this is not defending yourself, to just destroy hospitals, universities, drop 500,000, 2,000-pound bombs on small refugee camps. That's not defending yourself. Intentionally targeting innocent civilians and murdering surgeons and authors and professors. This is not defending yourself.
Injuries since the past.
Also, just to make it clear, please watch my previous shows under international law. Israel doesn't even have the right to defend itself. Israel is an occupying force. Under international law, Palestinians have a right to defend themselves because they are being occupied.
Couple of minutes where there has been an attack in Al-Nusayrat in the middle area. Those Palestinians who evacuated from different areas across the Gaza Strip, here we have been seeing at least 3 ambulances that have been carrying and transferring killings and injured bodies from an attack on Nusayrat in the middle area. Now, those Palestinians have been recently evacuated to the middle area. We still did not have confirmed numbers. We're going to wait for the Palestinian Minister of Health, but we see a dead body now carried to the morgue of the hospital, and this is the reality. Despite the fact that people are moving into the humanitarian zone, and let me remind you that the Gaza Strip humanitarian zone by the Israeli forces has shrinked 11%. Well, I just received news that this is a new attack in the eastern parts of Deir al-Balah, and we can see people crying over their beloved ones. This has been the scene every single day.
It's so ridiculous. It's so sad.
Carried to the morgue of the hospital, and this is the reality. Despite the fact that people are moving into the humanitarian zone, and let me remind you that the Gaza Strip humanitarian zone by the Israeli forces has shrinked 11%. Well, I just received news that this is a new attack in the eastern parts of Deir al-Balah, and we can see people
Wow, it's just so, you hear that scream, that desperate scream, that desperate cry is so sad. Just murder constantly every day of families and children and babies, innocent, defenseless people. You hear that woman, that scream, that's just so painful.
11%. Well, I just received news that this is a new attack in the eastern parts of Deir al-Balah, and we can see people crying over their beloved ones. This has been the scene every single day in Deir al-Balah. Now, those Palestinians who
and this is the United States and Israel totally ignoring international law, murdering innocent women, children, and babies in vicious, horrific ways. Children having amputations performed with no anesthesia, snipers assassinating children, shooting them in the head or the heart with head and heart shots, or shooting young people in the kneecap to cripple them for life, harvesting organs, mass graves, targeting doctors, surgeons, authors, press, the news press, professors, destroying hospitals, museums, mosques, universities, creating children with no families left, raping and torturing, illegal settlements, refusal to comply with international law, making genocidal statements justified by using the Bible, not respecting the rulings of the United Nations, International Criminal Court, or the International Court of Justice. This hubris, this blatant disregard for international law, they are attempting to drive the world backwards because the military-industrial complex is making so much money. So to them, permanent war is a great thing. The United States empire wants regression, not progression. Other countries of the world are not allowed to develop and grow and pass the United States economically. That's the great sin of China. So conflict and war must be maintained. That's the job of the Pentagon via the CIA. Peace is the enemy, and they resort to drastic measures to even the slightest threat to their total control.
evacuated from different parts across the Gaza Strip came to Deir al-Balah thinking that this is a safe area. But as you see, the hospital has been overwhelmed with Palestinians injured and killed. This is the reality. Now, Palestinians are saying those who evacuated from Khan Yunis, those who evacuated from different parts of the Gaza Strip came to this area thinking that it was safe. But as you see, there's no way or there's no guarantee that they won't be targeted in those areas of Deir al-Balah.
Yeah, Hind, what your camera crew is filming right now and what they've just shown us, I think speaks volumes about the day-to-day reality in Deir al-Balah. It is on the one hand the place where so many Palestinians have fled to, and it is simultaneously a place where Palestinians are being attacked, reiterating a point that you've made in your reporting and our teams on the ground have continuously made. Hind al-Khudari, thank you so much for your reporting there from just outside the hospital.
I'm going to close here. Yeah, I'm going to begin to close here. Let's just watch one more thing and then I'm going to begin to close.
Sam Rose is the Director of Planning with UNRWA, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees. You're joining us live from Al Zawayda in Gaza, inside the Strip. Sam, Israel has been accused of using starvation as a weapon of war. Is it fair to say it's also using thirst as a weapon of war?
I mean, look, what I can say is that the water situation for Palestinians in Gaza, it was bad before the war. It's catastrophic right now, both in terms of availability of water, people's ability to access that water, but also major concerns about the quality of the water that's being provided. And we're seeing that manifested in higher rates of malnutrition and in outbreaks of infectious disease, in particular hepatitis, but we've also seen recently dysentery and massive increases in rates of diarrhea in recent weeks. All this down to
also polio. There's a threat of polio now, and Israel gave the Israeli soldiers polio vaccine, but they did not give it to the Palestinians, which is a violation of international law because an occupying force has certain obligations.
to poor water quality and lack of quantity.
Yeah, so you're pointing out multiple problems within one, right? Quantity of water available, access to that water, and the quality of the water. In terms of quantity, the report we just heard laid out that on a good day, there might be 7 to 8 liters available per person, or one person rather might get access to 7 or 8 liters of water. How much water does a human being need on a daily basis?
Minimal survival needs, we estimate.
And you know, the United States committing these, you know, horrific acts is what you call hubris. You know, it's like an exaggerated pride. And this is, you know, remember the ancient Greeks who considered hubris a dangerous character flaw capable of provoking the wrath of the gods. In classical Greek tragedy, hubris was often a fatal shortcoming that brought about the fall of the tragic hero. Typically, overconfidence led the hero to attempt to overstep the boundaries of human limitations and assume a godlike status, and the gods inevitably humbled the offender with a sharp reminder of their mortality. So this is what we're dealing here with, these sociopaths in Washington, D.C. Hubris.
In the humanitarian sector, around 15 liters a day per person minimal. That's
Sorry, was that 15?
want 5 for drinking, for washing, for basic hygiene. And yes, as you said, it's a whole range of interconnected problems here that we're dealing with, which means the only solution to it is really a ceasefire. We previously had massive issues with fuel coming in, powering water wells and powering desalination plants. Those have recently been eased, but we're left with a whole raft of other issues, the massive damage that has been inflicted on the water and sanitation infrastructure over the past 10 months, the partial supply from Israeli water lines and our inability to bring in spare parts, to bring in the chemicals, to purify the water. We're suffering from a lack of chlorine right now. And in terms of the daily grind for the people of Gaza, as your correspondent said, over 1 million people now crammed into the middle area. This isn't an
Yeah, this is absolutely ridiculous. These people are being treated worse than animals. And let me just close with the zoom in, zoom out. Now remember that, this murdering of innocent civilians, Israel has been very successful at that. These are innocent civilians, unarmed people. But when it comes to the actual fighting with Hamas, Hezbollah, they're losing. The United States in the Red Sea, Yemen, the United States is losing. So let me just close. The U.S. and its boy Israel, this ass whipping you're taking and you're going to keep taking is a long time coming. Y'all getting your asses whipped, and it's a long time coming. The refusal of the U.S. to acquiesce to the reality and recognize the geopolitical situation, to learn from history. Why do they persist in this total dominance of the world? Why do they persist in this total dominance of the world or burn it all down philosophy? Why not learn from the falls of past empires and do something different? Why does this Neanderthal-like behavior persist? Some people have more Neanderthal DNA in their genes than others, and the colonialism and having a military solution as your primary standard operating procedure, and as your primary standard operating procedure instead of diplomacy, okay, and the hoarding of resources and the hostile disposition toward others, in my opinion, is manifested in modern times in the United States invasions and coups in other countries in order to control the resources, oil, gold, platinum, and precious minerals. And yeah, and they just want to keep this going. And another thing is, please watch my last show. You'll see that Jill Stein is running for president under the Green Party, a third party. And why are they fighting to prevent third parties? They're doing lawsuits in order to keep the Green Party and Jill Stein off of the ballot. So please watch my last show. Why aren't there any voices in high places and people who have influence in high places in the government, people of notoriety and people in high positions of power? Why aren't they screaming for a new system? This insanity has been normalized, and we shouldn't be living in 2024. We shouldn't be living in this dangerous, precarious existence with the nuclear destruction of the world as an ever increasing probability. So please, I'm going to try to get a schedule down. Like I'm thinking Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time will be, we'll try to, so people can tune in. And please click the subscription. Please subscribe to the channel. Please click the notification bell so you'll be notified when I drop a new video, a new show. thank you so much for tuning in, and peace out.